Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're someone who's, always trying to learn, get things deeply but also efficiently well, you're definitely in the right place. We know that learner mindset.
Absolutely. And today, we're tackling something really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
It's this question, how hard learning feels.
Mm.
Is that actually a good sign of how much you're, learning?
Right. That connection between the feeling of effort, how sure we are we're getting it, and, well, the actual results.
Exactly. And we're looking at a big picture here, not just one study, but a meta-analysis. It pulls together lots of different studies on this.
So, getting a really broad view, our mission today then is to sort of figure out if that feeling, wow, this is tough, I must be learning, or maybe, this is easy, I got it, if that's actually trustworthy.
Yeah, should you trust that gut feeling? That's the core question.
Okay, so let's break down what this meta-analysis looked at. Three key things.
Right. First, perceived mental effort. Just how hard your brain feels like it's working. Simple enough.
Okay, effort. Got it.
Second, monitoring judgments. That's your internal confidence meter, how well you think you're doing.
Your own assessment. Okay.
And third, the actual learning outcomes. How well did you actually do? Test scores, applying the knowledge, that sort of thing.
The proof in the pudding, basically.
Pretty much. So the central question, is that feeling of effort a good guide? Or maybe not.
Let's start with something that sounds a bit weird. A previous study, a meta-analysis back in 2020, found something surprising about effort and confidence.
Yeah, Bars and colleagues. They found a negative link. So more effort meant less confidence.
Hang on. So when learning felt harder, people thought they were learning less. That feels backward.
It does, doesn't it? And when it felt easier, they were more confident they were getting it. It's like we inherently distrust the struggle when you're judging our own learning process.
Huh. So if I'm banging my head against a wall trying to understand something, that feeling itself might make me think I'm failing, even if I'm actually making progress.
That seems to be the tendency, yeah. The researchers suggested that when we don't have direct feedback, like a quiz score right away, we look for other clues.
And how hard it feels is one of those clues.
Exactly. It seems to be a big one. There's this concept, the easily learned and easily remembered heuristic.
A heuristic, like
Yeah.
a mental shortcut.
Right. A rule of thumb. We tend to just assume that if something was easy to learn, it'll be easy to remember later.
Okay, that makes a kind of intuitive sense. But this new meta-analysis, the one we're really digging into, it went further.
It did. They wanted to connect all three pieces. The effort, the confidence, and the actual learning outcomes. How do they all fit together?
Right, because knowing if those feelings, effort, confidence, are actually leading us the right way,
Mhm.
that's crucial for, like, managing our own learning.
Definitely. It's key for self-regulated learning.
Yeah.
So they use this fancy statistical approach, meta-analytic structural equation modeling.
Okay, sounds complex. What does that let them do?
It lets them look at the relationships between all three things, effort, confidence, outcome all at once, across all the studies. Gives a much clearer picture than just looking at pairs of things.
All right, let's get to the results then. What did the numbers actually show? After confirming that first puzzle about effort and confidence, what else?
Well, yeah, they did confirm that negative link between perceived effort and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
The number was beta 0.19.
So still, higher felt effort, lower confidence. That holds up.
It does. It reinforces that idea.
Yeah.
We often think hard work means we're not getting it, which is interesting.
Okay, but what about confidence and actual results? If you feel confident, does that mean you actually learned more?
Yes, generally. That link was positive, beta 0.29. So higher confidence was associated with better learning outcomes.
Okay, that makes sense. Feeling like you've got it is generally a good sign.
Seems to be, yes.
But how does the effort part connect to the outcomes then? If effort lowers confidence and confidence links to outcomes, what's the overall path?
This is the really crucial bit. They found a significant negative indirect association between perceived effort and the learning outcomes.
Indirect, meaning
Or
it
vertical.
goes through confidence.
Exactly. It works via those monitoring judgments, our confidence levels.
Right.
The indirect effect was beta, making it 0.05.
Okay, let's break that down. So feeling like you're working hard doesn't directly hurt your learning,
Right.
but it makes you feel less confident.
Ah.
And that lower confidence is then linked to slightly worse results.
You've got it. That's the key pathway they found. When it feels hard, we lose a bit of confidence, and that dip in confidence seems to correlate with learning a bit less effectively. The feeling of effort is a clue, but it's filtered through our own self-assessment.
Wow, okay. But then why wasn't there a strong direct link? Shouldn't more effort just lead to more learning sometimes?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And cognitive load theory offers a possible explanation. Think of working memory like your computer's RAM.
Okay. Limited capacity.
Right. If a task just throws too much at you, or it's presented in a really confusing way, simply trying harder, putting in more effort, might not help. Your RAM is already overloaded. Effort is good, but only up to a point.
So pushing harder on a task that's just badly designed or too complex might not actually achieve much.
It might even be counterproductive. That feeling of high effort could be coming from stuff that isn't actually helping you learn the core material,
Oy.
like wrestling with confusing instructions or distracting environment, or maybe just using a really inefficient study strategy. That's called extraneous load, wasted effort.
Ah, okay. Like trying to read terrible handwriting instead of focusing on the message.
Perfect analogy. That's
Yeah.
extraneous load. The effort you want is germane load, the effort spent actually thinking about the material, making connections, building understanding.
But our feeling of effort doesn't distinguish between those. It just feels hard.
Pretty much. It's a blunt instrument. And adding to the complexity,
Yeah.
the study highlights that we're often not great judges of our own learning anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned that. We tend to overestimate.
We do. Very common bias. So correctly interpreting that feeling of effort is really important for steering our learning effectively. But we tend to see high effort as a bad sign. And as we're seeing, well, it's more nuanced than that.
Now, you mentioned earlier that sometimes this negative link between effort and confidence isn't as strong, like when motivation is high.
Right. If you're really invested, really see the value in what you're learning, that struggle might actually feel productive. You might interpret high effort as a sign of progress because the goal is so important to you.
So passion can change how we interpret the feeling of difficulty.
It seems like it can. And they also mention things like time pressure or incentives. Those external factors, goal-driven things, can also shift how we perceive and react to the effort involved.
Makes sense. Okay, now this meta-analysis covered a lot of ground. Did they find any factors that surprisingly didn't change these main relationships? Things they thought might matter but didn't?
Yes, and this was quite interesting. They ran what are called moderator analyses, looking at different subgroups and study characteristics. And honestly, a lot of things didn't significantly change the overall picture.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, level of education. Didn't seem to matter much whether learners were younger students or university level.
Really? Okay.
Also, how mental effort was measured. Different scales, like 5-point versus 9-point, different wording for the effort questions, whether they rated effort per item or for the whole task. None of those seem to make a big difference to the core findings.
That's surprising. You'd think how you ask about effort might change the answer?
You might think so, but in this large analysis, it didn't seem to significantly alter the main relationships between effort, confidence, and outcomes.
What else didn't moderate the effects?
The type of monitoring judgment used, like whether it was a judgment of learning or just general confidence, didn't matter much. The timing of those judgments before, during, after learning, again, not a significant moderator here.
Even the type of learning task, like reading versus problem solving.
Nope. That didn't pop out as significant either, nor did the perceived difficulty of the task itself, interestingly.
Wow, that's a lot of things that didn't matter in this analysis. I thought some previous work had found things like task type or timing to be important.
That's true, and the authors acknowledge that difference. It highlights that, meta-analyses can sometimes yield different results depending on the specific studies included or the statistical methods used. It points to needing more research to iron out those discrepancies.
Okay, so let's bring it back home. For someone listening, trying to learn better, what's the practical advice here? What do we do with this?
I think the biggest thing is be careful about relying only on how hard learning feels to judge if you're getting it.
Don't just trust the feeling of strain.
Right. It has that indirect link through confidence, but it's not a direct, reliable measure on its own. High effort could mean deep learning, or it could mean you're fighting distractions, bad materials, or using a poor strategy.
And feeling easy doesn't automatically mean deep understanding either.
Exactly. It might just be superficial fluency.
So if effort isn't the best gauge, what should we pay more attention to?
Developing better monitoring skills is key. Getting better at judging your actual understanding. Don't just go by the gut feeling.
How do we do that?
Well, things like testing yourself. Try to retrieve the information without looking. Can you summarize the key points in your own words? Can you explain it to someone else? Those kinds of activities give you much better feedback than just the feeling of effort.
So active recall, self-explanation. Those are better indicators.
Much better. And of course, getting actual feedback on your performance whenever possible. A quiz, an assignment, asking questions, that's the gold standard for calibrating your self-assessment.
What about those desirable difficulties you mentioned? Things like retrieval practice or spacing out study sessions. Those feel hard, but they're good for learning, right? How does that fit?
That's a fantastic point, and it really complicates the simple effort equals bad sign idea. Desirable difficulties are designed to be effortful. They make learning feel harder in the moment.
But they lead to better long-term learning.
Often, yes. Much better retention and deeper understanding. So in that context, the high effort is actually a signal that a beneficial process is happening, even if it feels frustrating or lowers your immediate confidence.
So the effort involved in, say, trying to remember something you learned last week, that's good effort, even if it feels difficult.
Precisely. That struggle strengthens the memory trace. It shows how the immediate feeling can be misleading. Easy learning might feel good now, but evaporate later. Hard-won learning often sticks.
So it's about knowing why something feels effortful. Is it productive struggle, or is it just friction?
That's a great way to put it. And recognizing which strategies are desirable difficulties helps you interpret that feeling of effort more accurately. It still comes back to monitoring your actual progress over time, not just the immediate feeling.
Okay. Now, every study has limitations. What did the researchers say about the potential caveats for this meta-analysis?
Well, first, it's correlational. They found links between these factors across many studies, but they can't definitively prove cause and effect from this type of analysis alone. The model suggests a direction, effort to confidence to outcomes, but other factors could be involved.
Like motivation you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Motivation could influence all three things, but it wasn't directly measured consistently across all the studies they included. They also noted that for some specific moderator tests, the number of studies was a bit small, which means they might have missed some subtler effects.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, a big one. Most studies looked at immediate learning outcomes, tested shortly after learning, how these relationships play out for long-term retention, weeks or months later. That's less clear from this data. It definitely needs more research.
Right. The long game might be different. Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the single biggest takeaway message for our listeners from this deep dive?
I'd say it's this. Your feeling of effort is connected to your confidence, and your confidence is connected to your learning results. But that initial feeling of effort itself, it's not a straightforward, reliable gauge of how well you're actually learning. It's an indirect cue, kind of noisy.
So don't just blindly follow the feeling of mental strain or lack thereof.
Exactly. Learning to judge your own learning accurately is a skill, and it involves looking beyond just how hard it feels.
This has been super interesting. Really makes you think differently about that feeling of struggle or ease when learning. So knowing that how hard something feels isn't always the best guide. Maybe the question for our listeners is, what other cues could you start paying more attention to in your own learning?
That's a great question to ponder. Maybe something we can explore more in the future, other ways to effectively check your own understanding.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks so much for breaking all that down. Until next time, everyone keep learning and keep questioning those feelings.